Welcome to Ira's Everything Bagel, where I talk with intriguing people about everything, their passions, pursuits, and points of view. There is history, and some would say herstory, but there is only one history. My guest today is comedian Mike Morris, co-writer and co-illustrator of Ha Ha History, the first history book you'll want to read. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all the usual places. For everything about Mike Morris, you can go to writefunny.net. You could follow Mike on Instagram at InstaMikeMorse, on Twitter at Mike Morse Says, and his podcast on patreon.com/the Shuli Network. And Mike, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Ira.
I was intrigued by your history book. You have a multitude of careers and talents, but I thought we would talk about the book. But you know what? Now that I think about it, before we even get into the book, tell us a little bit, for those who may not know, a little bit about your background as a comedian and a comedy writer, and possibly a criminal. I don't know. There may
be. Well, if you make a living doing comedy, it's kind of like being a criminal. I've been doing stand-up since I never had a real job. I got out of college and I started doing stand-up. I was very fortunate that I started making a living, and I'd always written, so I would supplement the comedy stand-up with writing for other people, and then it kind of flipped. Now I do a lot more writing for comedians than I do stand-up. I love both, and for quite eight years I wrote for Lisa Lampanelli, and was her opening act. So that was a great gig because it kind of combined both.
And also you consult and teach too, because you have writefunny.net. So there are people that can check in with you and learn how to write comedy.
Yeah, a lot of comedians, they'll have an idea and they don't know how to put it into a bit. I'll help them with that. Whatever they need. I just got a client today that two. I'm doing writing a roast for a politician that's going to be doing some political roast, and I just started writing for a ventriloquist, and she needs material for her and her puppets. So
you're writing for both of them.
Yeah, it's kind of like writing a sitcom, because you have two people talking, so you just let it go, and it's
We should also point out that, or I should also point out, I hate it when we do the royal we.
We can both do it. No, we'll both point it out.
Mike Morris is the one who populated the theory that funny is usually in threes, and because of his name, it's usually dots or dashes. So that's important to point out as well. And this book that you have written, co-written with Neil Berliner, is he the brother of Ich bin ein Berliner, or is that somebody else?
He is good friends with the Kennedys.
Yeah, there you go. There's a book.
There's actually four of us wrote it: Joey Novick, Neil Berliner, myself, and Ron Bo Phillips. It's called Ha Ha History, and it's jokes about history, and there's one for each day of the year.
So I think you didn't mention
approximately 364.
I think you didn't mention Mike Crumbs, but I'll mention Mike Crumbs.
Oh, well, yes. I illustrated part of it, and he illustrated other parts of it. So.
How did this book come together? Because it's always tricky when you're a solo author or illustrator and you're putting together a book. That's a major event, which is probably why I've never done it, because I'm inherently lazy and I'm registered as well. I like short stuff, but a book is a bit much. But now you've got not just you, but you have a co-illustrator and you have co-writers. So how does that idea germinate, and then how do you assign the division of labor?
Well, it was all Joey and Neil. It was their baby. They came up with this. I think I forget which had the original idea, but they came to me and said, we want to start doing this. And so we just kind of matched wits, or half wits, and and started and we would just what I did is every day I would get up and just go through the calendar, like whatever day I was at. If I was started at March 3rd, I would write a couple jokes about history events of that day, and just write as many as I could, write a couple, and then March 4th, so try to get 365 days of jokes in as small of a time as we could.
Who had final veto power? So you write these jokes, but did the group as a whole get to say, you know what, we like A but not B? C's okay, but B is not.
Neil was the editor. He's the one who we amassed them all and decided which ones it would go. And Yeah, and we haven't thrown the other ones away. We can probably use them at a later date.
And are you all still talking to each other after?
No, no. Yes, I've known Neil. I've known Joey longer. I knew Joey when I first started comedy. He booked me in a couple of my first stand-up jobs in the probably early yeah, late 80s, early 90s, yeah.
And you're an East Coast guy, so most of these guys, I assume, also are from the East Coast?
Yes, Neil is originally from Brooklyn. Joey's from New York, and Ron. I'm not sure where Ron is from originally. I know he's moved around a lot. He was in San Francisco, and I don't know if he's still there. I've never physically met him,
Oh,
but
that's a
I assume he exists.
yeah, he may or may not. It may be a
Yeah,
phony email by Neil.
yeah.
Who knows? Just an
He
extra
may
person.
be IE or AI. I don't know. Yeah.
Which, yeah, which would be frightening if it works that way. But so, do you find the process easy because you've been doing this so long? In other words, you mentioned about going to the calendar and looking up and seeing what was happening in this day in history, or two or three things happening in this day in
Mhm.
history, and then crafting jokes for it. Is it second nature? I was gonna say almost second nature. Is it second nature?
Well, you learn how to do it. It's never easy. It's always a challenge to try to craft, as they say, something funny out of whatever you need to craft it from. But I've written jokes for so a million years, and I used to write monologue jokes for the Tonight Show, and it's very much in that kind of structure. It's a topic, and you have to find the funny in it and keep it as short and concise as possible.
Now you have the advantage that the people and events that you write about are generally dead, so you're not going
Yeah.
to get feedback from them.
There are a few. I think we have a couple of Bill Gates and
Oh, okay.
Bezos,
But
and
like Abraham Lincoln, George Washington, they're not going to
I
complain if
have
you.
been haunted. I've been haunted a few
Oh
times
no.
by.
Okay, I understand. What's been the reaction to the book so far?
Apparently, it's been it came in at number one for the new joke book Amazon. I don't know numbers. I'm the comedy guy. I'm like, just tell me what to write. I'll write it. You guys worry about the numbers. Apparently, it was doing very well on Amazon. Thank you everybody out there who bought it or pre-ordered. You can get it on Kindle as well as a physical copy.
Kindle's good. That way you can take it with you on the airplane and
Right,
along with 9 million other books, and it doesn't weigh that much.
right.
Yeah, no, that
And
makes sense.
yeah, and yeah, I let those guys know at the outset that I'm so bad with numbers and business. I was like, I just tell me what I have to write. I will sit here on my butt and write it and send it, and then you let me know. And then a couple months later, this comes. So all right, good.
Hold it up again, and this time don't let the light reflect. You got to practice that when you make a TV appearances. No, right now the light's hitting you.
Oh,
That's
is it? Oh,
yeah. You
hmm.
want to get at a certain angle. That's it. That's the angle. There you go.
Ooh,
Yes,
3D,
sir. There you go.
3D.
Wow. I'm getting
Ooh,
I'm getting seasick looking at that.
ooh.
For those of our listeners wondering what I'm getting
Yeah,
seasick at.
yes. And I drew the little cover there. That's my stuff.
Nice.
Yeah. So
How does it this it's a cliche question, but it has to be asked. When the book comes out and you hold it in your hands, not the virtual copy as you would get
mhm.
it Kindle, but an actual physical copy. Do you get a sense of immortality? In other words, this thing is going to be around long after I'm gone.
I doubt it'll be around after I'm gone. I think
So
I
much
think I will.
pressure.
Yeah, I will outlive this. But no, it is nice. It's nice to see. Stand-up comedy is so ethereal, where it's you do your joke and then it's gone.
In the
99%, unless you're
ether. Yeah.
yeah, unless you're filming, then it's just you're a live crowd. You have a great time, and then it's over. And even the podcasts I do, we do record them, but you're there in the moment. I never go back and look at them, so it is what it is. This, it's nice where he's like, oh, I took all that time to write this stuff, and it's here. Okay,
And now you have something to give away for the holidays.
right.
Sure, they're going to give
And
you a discount
Neil's going to make
on
me buy them though. So instead,
a
I'll when I didn't even realize he sent me this, he autographed it. So now it's not worth as
Oh, there
much.
you
But
oh,
yeah.
I'm not telling him you said that.
There, see,
You could
he
give it as a
autographed
gift to someone and say, "This was from Neil."
it. There listen, I want my friends to stay my friends. Okay.
Yes, fair enough. Could I impose on you to just give us one or two samples from the book to give the
Sure.
flavor of it? More than
Um,
And then I want
oh,
to
and
talk
this
a little
one,
bit about your various, I think you're up to 2,000 podcasts a week that you're on, but
oh
we'll talk about that in a minute. But I want to stay with the
yeah,
book for
it's killing me. I'm 23 years old. Look at what's doing to me.
now. I know
All
a
right.
lot of 23-year-olds with gray hair,
All
not with
right.
saggy
March
skin.
4th. March 4th, 1793. George Washington gives the shortest presidential inaugural speech at 133 words. Some say this is because Washington was a man of action, not words. Others say it's because he forgot to sand down his wooden teeth and has a mouthful of splinters. You see, it has a little illustration
Oh,
there
yes,
of
there's the
George.
illustration of the mouthful of
Yeah.
splinters.
Yeah. So, yeah. What else? Let's see.
Pick one
Let's see.
more. I think that I like the presentation.
Oh, here.
Your
Okay.
delivery is wanting, but your presentation.
The presentation is fine. How would you like me to? I can do it as any. Who do you want me to do it as? Tony Soprano? May
Sure, if you
7,
want to
yeah,
do that.
1867. Swedish chemist Alfred Nobel patents dynamite. Now, 1867, Swedish chemist Alfred Nobel patents dynamite, the first of 3 patents he would receive for the explosive material. To boost sales, he immediately gets on the horn to hire celebrity spokesman Jimmy J.J. Walker. See the little illustration there?
That's a great cultural reference, a pop cultural reference that
Yeah.
many people will get and others will go, I didn't get that. But if
Yeah,
you
it's
are
all
in
right.
that gestalt,
Not
you'll
every
get it.
joke is for everybody.
That's exactly right. And I like that fact that not every joke is for everybody.
Wow.
Was
Now,
there
Ira, do you do stand up?
I have in the past. It's funny you should ask that. I don't normally reveal that to my audience, but I have done it in the past. Not at the level of most of you guys, but
Hmm.
I've dabbled in it, Mike.
You're a dabbler.
Yes, in my early years, and then I got sidetracked to broadcasting, writing,
Hmm.
public relations, hotel industry, and so I have been away from it. But I do speeches, so that I guess
Okay.
that would fit in the realm in a way.
It is public speaking. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
in its
a,
own way.
yeah. Well, once you can do stand up in front of a crowd, then you can, then public speaking is easy because you don't have to worry about having a laugh every 20 seconds.
That's right, exactly.
Uh,
Boy, that's why I admire anybody that can get up in front of a group at a comedy club who, of course, has been drinking, as opposed to a speech where you maybe they're having lunch and they're talking among each other, but you can get their attention a lot easier than
Right.
the drunks in the front row.
Right. And in public speaking, if they are not really into what you're saying, they're not going to yell, "You suck!
Yeah,
You suck!"
exactly.
You're pretty safe from that.
Exactly. There are no such things as hecklers in public speaking.
Right.
Do you have, speaking
Except
of
for the State of the Union address.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, when you do perform, and I know you recently performed stand-up,
Mm.
do you have some lines ready for the potential heckler?
Well, there are lines that are have been in there after years and years of doing it, but usually I like to deal with the situation, who the person is. It's sort almost like a live roast. If they're gonna,
Right.
come at me, I'll see what their weak spots are, and just go after them. And yeah, I mean, luckily it rarely happens where it's somebody really antagonistic. Usually it's just somebody a little too drunk, a little too happy, and you play around with them a little bit, and they'll calm down.
My sense of you is that unlike several of your compadres in the industry, or most of
Mhm.
your compadres in the industry, you always have struck me as I'm not going to say a gentle soul. It's not that so much as you're low key in
Mhm.
your approach to humor and in performing. I mean, you're very funny, but it's not at a screaming level or a brash level, if
Mhm.
that makes sense. Have you
Right.
had that observation from other people?
Well, it really depends on the situation I'm in because I did a lot of friars roasts, and during those you really have to be kind of in your face, and so that was and it's fun. It's fun to go in there knowing you're going to be Don Rickles,
Yes,
this fat guy, this ugly guy, so that's fun. So that's a whole different mindset. And then when I was opening for Lisa, her crowd really wanted hard hitting stuff. You couldn't go, what's the deal with airplane peanuts? You couldn't do that. They would just, they would just start yelling at you. So you had to come out and you had to be, kind of hardcore. And that's fun. But my normal stand up is a little more laid back and a little more fun than that.
and I assume that's part of your nature is that way. So in other words, you exaggerate yourself for the situations with roasts and working for Lisa.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's also, the funny thing about a performance, and even even podcasts or whatever, is you bring out parts of yourself that you don't necessarily show in real life. If you did it, you'd probably be arrested. But you get to, just like Howard Stern, is a really nice guy. If you're talking to him, he's going to be polite and attentive and respectful. But once the microphone goes on, he's going to go after anything that's going to make people laugh, and so that's where he gets the whole shock jock thing from.
Going to the podcast for a moment, the challenge I would think on a technical level with a podcast is, and I hate to hark back to history, but I will for just a moment. When the federal judge, I think it was Johnson, he yes, haha, history, yes, new book by Mike Morse and others,
And others.
Crumbs and Ron Bu and Joey Novick and Neil Berliner, the brother of Benign Berliner, all of that stuff. When you're doing a podcast and there's more than one host, or
Mhm.
even one host but several guests, going back to my haha history, is that
Mhm.
I believe it was the federal judge Johnson who outlawed Ma Bell. And at the time you had what was called a monopoly and a duplex technology, which I could talk over you, you could talk over me as
Mhm.
in real life. Then
Right.
that was then broken up. Now we have the cell phone technology, which as good
Mhm.
as it is, there's a slight delay. So you
Mhm.
really can't talk over each other. And then the same situation technologically when you're doing podcasts, no matter what platform you're using, there's always that slight delay. So
Mhm.
it's how do you manage to work that so you're not stepping over someone else's line or even the guest's line?
Well,
Or have you
fortunately
aware
for
of it?
our podcasts on the Shuli Network, especially the Uncle Rico show and the BS show, it's Shuli, Bob Levy, and myself. And I've known Bob over 30 years. We kind of started in comedy together. And then we did Miserable Men on Sirius Radio together for, I think 5 years, 6 years, whatever it was. So we know how we work. So we know you can almost tell when somebody's going to say something, so you back off. And if they start, if you start and they start, you kind of know it's instinctive at this point where it's like playing on a team. When your teammate's going to be passing you the ball.
But the only time that would be a challenge, I would think, is if you have a guest on the podcast and you're not sure their rhythm.
Right. Well, that's where you kind of sit back and just let, Shuli is the host of the shows, so he's the band leader, so he will ask the questions usually. But if we have a question and want to ask the person, we know we can figure out when to go in. It's all it's all just practice.
So by the numbers, how many podcasts are you doing each week? And go ahead and share.
642.
Yes,
It's
and share the names
amazing.
of them too, 'cause and how
Yes,
many of
we
them
have.
are in the haha history book too?
Yeah, we have a lot. We have the Uncle Rico show and the Blunder Years. Those are two that are, and they're both dedicated to making fun of Stuttering John from the Howard Stern show. Long story, you don't have to listen to it, but if you ever tune in and you'll realize what we do. Then there's the BS show, which is just the three of us just watching clips of weird stuff we found on the internet and making fun of it. Then there's the Miserable Men show, which is the three of us plus a couple other people who we try to get guests and just talk about how miserable it is to be a man. And, and then there's a few others. Those are the ones I'm involved with, and I'm working on one that's going to be music based. That should be hopefully premiering soon. So
Yes, there were
yeah,
rumors that you were going to have your own podcast on the Shuli Network.
yes, it's if it all works out, it's gonna be coming out. It's gonna be called F That Tune, and we're gonna have guests on, and we're gonna talk about these songs that they hate,
I love
popular songs that they cannot stand to listen to,
it.
so yeah, it should be fun.
Have you found that because you're doing so many of these podcasts that in the past maybe you haven't had to be too technical, but now that you are doing so many that you are starting to get different equipment and doing certain things technically that you didn't do in the past?
Oh yeah, when we started even doing this several years ago, just as a goof during the pandemic, the three of us got together and just started doing a very low low res interpretation of the old Miserable Men show. We would just get on Zoom and like this and just you fool around. And as it got bigger and bigger and better, and the whole thing developed, now I have professional microphone and actually a professional camera and lights and the round lights and the side lights, and I have a screen that I use for some of the shows with the the green screen. So yeah,
Right.
all of a sudden it's like, oh damn, this is this is like a job now.
Yeah, but the advantage is, and it started, as you mentioned in the pandemic, the advantage is you don't have to leave the place.
Oh, it's great. Yeah. But it was fun. We did last week we did a convention, DabbleCon, up in Rochester, New York, where people from literally all over the country, hundreds of people came just to watch us do a podcast and a comedy show. So it was the first time we've all three been in a room together in 15, 13 years, something like that.
Must have been something, just the fact that all three of you are together physically,
It was fun.
and
Yeah, it
not
was
in a
great.
sexual way. I mean, just on
Well,
stage.
no, well, no,
Well, maybe
well,
that too.
sexual,
Yes.
yeah, sexual. Bob Levy is a sexy beast. So
Do you find was it different in from a technical standpoint? You're interacting, so you're doing a stage show in a way. I know it's a
mhm.
podcast and people are going to listen to it and watch it, but at the same time, you're performing to the audience as well. So do you find that's a different kind of approach, or you're pretty much just doing it the same way?
It was kind of the same, but it was fun hearing instant feedback where, we don't we see chats. We have the chat while we're doing the live podcast and people can type what they want and we can read what they're saying. But to actually hear laughter and people are yelling stuff out and ideas and yeah, it was great. It was a lot of fun. It was our first time. We were a little nervous about how it was going to go and it went great and we're going to be doing a lot more of them around the country. And
So if they go to Patreon Shuli Network, they'll find you in all the shows.
yes, yes,
Okay,
and
good to
they
know.
can subscribe. We also have free ones on YouTube. Just look for the Shuli Network on YouTube, and you'll find the free ones that we give out. And
Excellent.
join the Dabbleverse.
I have a philosophical question for you. I don't want to start off the show with it, but I think it's a good one.
Okay.
And that is, especially given your background and
Mhm.
currently what you're doing with that. Well, what's the name of that book again? It's Ha
Uh,
Ha History. There it
history.
is. Yes. Why?
Mm,
Now, this is a cosmic question, but you can narrow it to whatever level you wish to.
Probably
Why?
very low level, but go ahead. Mm.
Why is humor important?
I think it it's a good, very, very good question. I would say it's important because I feel like I'm doing a book report, that you don't prepare for. Humor is important because people need humor. If they don't have humor, then there will be no humor.
Completing the circle. I like it.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
good.
It is something that everyone needs, and sometimes it is overlooked, and that it's a relief valve. And in fact, at the convention this week, we got a beautiful email afterwards saying this guy, his best friend had died of leukemia that week, and he was really down, and he thanked us for putting him in a better mood because he was there and got to experience the whole thing. And you get that sometimes when you're doing live comedy. It makes you feel really good, and people just need a chance to decompress and kind of laugh at life, and that's and hopefully they'll forget about their troubles for a while.
Do you think, and I'm going to give you the opposite question. Do you think that you can get to a point where there's too much humor and therefore not you, but
Mhm.
people are too much in the joke mode and therefore don't deal with a lot of problems that they would normally deal with because they deflect with their sense of humor about things? How's that for a philosophical question?
Yeah, but I think, well, people will find a way to deflect, whether it's humor or
True.
denial
Or any of
or
those.
drinking
Yeah,
or whatever. There's plenty of ways to not face situations, and I
right.
think humor is a more of a healthier way than some of them.
More benign in a
Yeah.
sense.
Now, and here's a funny thing, and I just thought of this recently is, I play a little music and I do some artwork, and when I do artwork, people say, "Oh my God, those cartoons are great. I can't draw a straight line." They're like, very eager to share with me that they can't do that. If I'm playing guitar or singing, they're like, "Wow, that's great. I can't play anything. I can't sing a note. I'm tone deaf." I've never heard anybody go after a comedy show, "I have no sense of humor." But some people have no sense of humor, but nobody wants to admit it.
Right, of course. That's the
Yeah,
worst thing you could say to somebody. You have no sense of
right, right. But some people have no sense of humor, and I'm sure you've met them where they're like, "I
humor.
don't think that's funny." "Why?" "Well, I have a good sense of humor." But no, you don't. No, you don't.
What's in the future for Mike Morse? Besides, of course, writing part 2 of what was that book
Oh,
called? Oh, Ha Ha
oh,
History. That's
haha,
there it
history
is.
too. Haha, more history. Yes, we actually have a few more books in the works to do with this and with different subjects of history. And we're just going to keep doing the podcast. I have a lot of live shows coming up, stand up shows, and I don't know, tonight I'll probably go to sleep.
Well, they could always
That's my
find out
immediate.
your schedule and by going to your website, which I'll give again in just a second.
Thank you.
But it's interesting that some of what you do requires discipline, and yet you're used to it, such as writing each day for the
Hmm.
Ha History book, looking under in the calendar, coming up with lines. And some of what you do naturally, but it's part of the business, which is the
Hmm.
podcast.
Right.
So it's an interesting mix that you have there. It's discipline, but also
Yeah.
you balance it with spontaneity
But
as
it's all
well.
discipline. I think, first of all, you have to be there. If the podcast is at, 9 a.m., you have to be there at 9 a.m. So there's that,
But isn't
you
that
know.
easier though than driving down to the local studio to be there? You're all you have to do is roll out of bed and walk 5 feet.
Right.
Yeah,
Right. But,
but still,
sometimes you're like, "Oh, I got a headache," or I have a problem. There's something, I have this to do or that to do. But while you're on camera, you have to go, all right, this is what I'm focusing on. It's all the discipline of finding the funny in what you're doing while the camera's on.
yeah, and that's a talent. Before I let you go, I'm going to see if I can get from you to name two of your favorite comedians, living or dead, that influenced you,
Well,
or if they're two favorites, or if they influenced you either way, or both.
the two that have probably influenced me the most, George Carlin was definitely the biggest influence because when I was a little kid, I remember asking my parents to get me the Class Clown album, the one with the seven dirty words, and I didn't tell them that was on it. It's like,
Wait a minute, he influenced you for the dirty words and the drugs. Okay, and the other.
yeah, yeah. uh, yeah, but that was a whole new world of because I loved comedy. I loved watching the Tonight Show. Whoever was on the Tonight Show, but then to hear that more subversive kind of stuff and what you could do with language and what you could do with comedy, that was a big influence. And then a little later after that was Steve Martin, where it was not just stand up. It was whatever he thought was funny, he would bring into the mix, music, props, and it really was like, wow, I've never seen anybody do that before.
Well, that's a great way to leave it, and you answered my question.
Hmm.
My guest has
Well,
been
thank you.
comedian Mike Morse. He's co-writer and co-illustrator of Ha Ha History, the first history book you'll want to read. It's available on Amazon. It's coming up again on screen. It's available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and all the usual places. And for everything about Mike Morse, M-O-R-S-E, go to writefunny.net, and you can follow Mike on Instagram at InstaMikeMorse, on Twitter at Mike Morse Says, and his podcast on patreon.com/The Shuli Network. And for those you don't know, who don't, I mangled that, but for those of you who don't know, it's SHULI, the Shuli Network. And Mike, thanks for being on the show.
Ira, thank you so much. I had a great time.
Me too. And join us every Thursday for a new schmear on Ira's Everything Bagel.